Good morning, and welcome to the Energy Perspectives Group webinar hosted by Amex Exploration. This event is being recorded. During the presentation, all participants will be muted. If you have any questions you would like to ask, please type them into the chat feature. We will read and answer questions at the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now here's Dan Steffens, who will introduce today's speaker.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. So we've got an interesting company here today, gold, a little change for us, but gold prices are doing really well. Anyway, welcome. Today's webinar is being hosted by Amex Exploration. It is a Canadian junior gold mining company based in Montreal. It trades as AMX on the TSX Venture Exchange up in Canada, and in the US is AMXEF on the OTCQX exchange. So the company's top prospect is called the Perron Gold Project, which is located on the western edge of the Quebec province in an area where there are numerous gold mines. This morning, the front month gold futures contract traded over $2,370 per ounce, which is close to the all-time high of 2408 that was set on April 18th. Gold future contracts normally lose ground during periods of high interest rate, but gold is considered a hedge against inflation. And with all the geopolitical stuff, wars going on, I think it's also considered like a safe haven. And we are definitely stuck in a period of high inflation. Amex Exploration recently announced that their parent drilling program has identified 3 similar zones that they have combined into a single that have a significant amount of recoverable gold. They're combining the 3 zones, which they now call the team zone, since all 3 zones display geological similarities. Well, I will stop there since I'm not a mining expert, and we have 2 members of Amex Exploration management team here to update us on the project. Aaron Stone, VP of Exploration, will be making today's presentation. Aaron is a Montreal-based geologist, originally hailing from Perth, Australia. He is a registered professional geologist in the provinces of Quebec and Ontario up in Canada. His experiences have been largely in gold, having recently worked on Newmont's Eleanor mine, I'm probably mispronouncing that, and Bonterra Resources' Vassar mine. Prior to that, the bulk of Mr. Stone's mining experience was in the Australian iron ore industry with BHP. Having managed large drilling programs in the past, he brings a solid set of geological and management skills to Amex. In addition to his pragmatic approach to mineral exploration, he holds a Bachelor's of Science degrees in mineral exploration and mining geology from Curtin University in Perth, Australia. Also joining us on the panel is Victor Cantori. I met Victor like 5 or 6 years ago. We were just talking about how time flies there a minute ago. He's a president and CEO. He is a seasoned capital markets professional with 20 years of experience specializing in resource and high-tech sectors. So I just want to remind everybody once again during the webinar, if you have a question, please type them into the chat box and we will answer them after the presentation. With that, I will now turn it over to Aaron Stone for an update on Amex's Perron project. Go ahead, Aaron.
Thanks very much, Dan. Really appreciate having us on today. So appreciate the opportunity to present to everyone and to present the exciting story that we've got here at Amex Exploration. So I'll jump right into it. Obviously, forward-looking statements, as you would see from most companies. If you wanted to read the full of that, is obviously on our website, as well as our qualified person and third-party data. So just quickly to start with our share performance and shares issued, we're currently at almost 115 million shares issued. You can see the analysts that cover us on the right-hand side of the slide there. If you're ever wanting to look at their reporting work, we all work fairly closely with all of them. Obviously, last year was in 2023 was a fairly rough year for a lot of gold juniors in the gold junior space, but obviously with gold price jumping back this year, we're starting to see a good recovery in our share price, and in addition to numerous other discoveries that we've made, which has helped point us back in the right direction. So our most recent financing was done with Eldorado Gold, who are a intermediate producer who have a few mines over in Europe, but they have their focus is starting to turn to Canada. So they have two operating mines actually in the Val d'Or area in Quebec, which is about a 5 to 6 hour drive north of Montreal. So this financing was closed at the start of February. And with the charity flow through structure that we have here available to us in Quebec, we were able to get 26.5 million on the back end from Eldorado. So fully financed for the remainder of 2024 and 2025 also. And it's great to have the backing of a producer such as Eldorado. So it speaks volumes to the confidence they were seeing in our Perron project, and it's great to have their expertise on board as a high grade, low cost gold producer in the Abitibi. So we have a technical committee that we've formed with them, and so it's great to have their expertise on board. So quickly on the team, as Dan mentioned, with Victor, our CEO, is on the call also. Jacques Trottier is our executive chairman. Once this project eventually becomes a mine, which it will a few years down the track, this will be his third mine that he has found. So he's been involved with the project right from the start, and has a real good track record of finding and putting mines into production. So the location of our project, the project, as I mentioned, is called the Perron Project. We're located in the Abitibi area of Quebec, which is a famous gold mining region, and a lot of infrastructure in the area. We're about a 7 to 8 hour drive from Montreal and Toronto. So you can drive straight to site with your car. Doesn't even have to be a 4-wheel drive. You can get right to our core shack in Normantal, and you could even drive right up to the rigs. All our roads up on site are in great condition also. This map, when it decides to load, this map here is a bit of a better representation of the Abitibi area. If I scroll back in this direction, you'll see Toronto down to the south and Montreal as well. But essentially all those yellow dots, they're all producing gold mines. So we've got the what we call the Cadillac break to the south, which is the most famous deformation zone in the Abitibi. A lot of producing gold mines around here. We've got the Val d'Or camp in the southeast, the Timmins camp in the west on the Ontario side. You can see the Ontario-Quebec border running straight down the middle there. All the way to the north, we've got the Detour Lake trend with the Detour Lake mine just on the Ontario side. This is the Casa Berardi break just to the north of us, with the closest operating mine to us as we speak being the Casa Berardi mine with Hecla. And we are located along what we call the Jacobi deformation belt, which is right in the middle here. And this is our Perron property right smack bang in the middle of the Abitibi. So we're extremely well placed. As you can see, not even though we are right in the middle of the Abitibi, the Jacobi belt's actually very underexplored for gold. It was previously thought to be a VMS only producing belt. So since Amex has made all of our gold discoveries, we've put that theory to bed a bit, and a lot of gold exploration work has opened up along the belt. We're located only 7 kilometers from the historically producing Normantal mine, which is why the town of Normantal is there, which was mined from roughly the 30s to the 70s, a bit over 10 million tons of really high-grade copper and zinc, as well as a bit of gold and a bit of silver. And they mined that down to a depth of about 2.4 kilometers. So a lot of these systems in the Abitibi have really deep roots. This is just a greenstone, a geological map of the entirety of the Abitibi greenstone belt, and just shows you where exactly the greenstones are located. And again, their Perron property is right in the middle of the Abitibi region here. This is just a quick, this is our basic geology map of the Perron project. As you can see, all of our gold discoveries to date are labeled with the yellow numbers. I'll just see if I can zoom in a bit here so we can have it. I'm zooming out instead. There we go. That's the most I can zoom in. So all of our discoveries to date are located in what we call the Beaupré block. So this is the yellowish block in the middle here, which is cut off to the north by the Normetal fault and to the south by the Perron fault. So in orogenic gold systems, structures are extremely important. They control gold mineralization. So the rhyolite, which is the rock that we have in the Beaupré block, is structurally controlled by these two major faults. And there are secondary structures such as shear zones and secondary faults that come off those main faults that control the mineralization. So to date, all of our gold, the bulk majority of our discoveries have been made within that block. And funnily enough, this is actually typically not the first place that you would start to look for an old orogenic gold deposit in the Abitibi. Usually you start looking for these deposits in mafic volcanics. The rhyolite block that we've got in the rhyolite that we have in the Beaupré block is actually a felsic volcanic. And what we have in the Normetal South block here is an andesite, which is a mafic volcanic, to which at this point we've barely touched, so it's extremely underexplored. So there's a lot of blue sky potential that remains across the balance of the property to make additional discoveries to those that have already been made within the Beaupré block. So this is just a quick overview of the drilling that has been done on the Perron property since discovery of what we call the high-grade zone was made in early 2018. As you can see, it starts to get a little bit jumbled just because of the pure amount of drilling that we've done across the property. Since 2018, we've drilled over 450,000 meters of diamond drilling, which is a very significant amount. At one point, we were one of the largest junior drilling programs in the entirety of Canada. We had 10, 11 drills at one point. Essentially, the main takeaway from this slide and the next is that all the pink spheres are assays of 10 grams per ton gold and higher. So we've got a lot of high grade gold spread out across the entirety of the property. And then this just shows the same thing from a longitudinal point of view. What you can see here that comes down to a depth of 1.3 kilometers now is what we call the high grade zone. So it's an extremely rich high grade gold system that has been drilled and remains open at depth. Like I mentioned, these orogenic gold systems can have very deep roots, as well as some of our other satellite deposits that have only been delineated very close to surface, and now we are starting to delineate those other zones further down at depth also. So zooming into the Eastern Gold Zone, which comprises of the high grade zone and what we call the Denise Zone just to the south of it. Here's an example of the gold mineralization that we find within in the high grade zone, which we'll talk about a little bit more as well. And just before we delve into the high grade zone, this is just an overview of the site. So if I turn this back in this direction, you'll find the town of Normetal, 7 kilometers to the southeast here. The road that accesses the site leaves directly from the town, brings us to where all our drill rigs are located. As you can see, all the roads are in great condition, so we can drill all year round, summer, winter. There's no issues at all with that. As you can see, also, there's no major waterways around the place, a few little swampy areas, as is to be expected in the Abitibi region, but no major rivers, anything like that. So from a permitting point of view, this is going to be a very easy project to permit as well. So this is the longitudinal of our high grade zone, which is definitely one of the main focuses for Amex, and which is probably the highlight deposit which attracted the investment from Eldorado Gold as well. So as I mentioned, it's been drilled down to a depth of 1.3 kilometers so far and remains open at depth. We've got great continuity in the high grade zone. A lot of orogenic gold deposits around the world. I'm sure you've heard about the nugget effect before. You can have really a high grade hit and then just next door have absolutely nothing. So you can see we've got great continuity here, and the nature of the mineralization is very homogeneous. So I can see in the upper portion of the high grade zone as well, in particular, we've plugged a lot of drill holes into this area just to prove the continuity of the system and that we weren't getting that nugget effect. So over on the left-hand side here, you can see an example of some of the grades that we see in the high grade zone. And this also includes, geologically as well, the high grade zone is very simple. It's essentially two extremely rich quartz veins with a mafic intrusion in the middle. So all of these values over here actually include the internal dilution of that mafic intrusion in the middle of those two gold rich quartz veins. So as an example, and I'll try my best to convert into the imperial system here, but I apologize, my being from Australia and now in Canada, my brain only works in metric. But in any case, so for example, that first hit there would be a bit over an ounce over approximately 20 feet. The second example would be almost 3 ounces over a little under 20 feet as well, just to give an idea in the imperial system as well. So that is our high grade zone. The Denise zone, which I mentioned as well, sits only 50 meters to the south of the high grade zone. So the high grade zone is going to be a more underground type deposit, whereas the Denise zone is looking to be a lower grade bulk tonnage open pittable resource located just next to the high grade zone, just to the south. We do have some very high grade portions in Denise. Like you can see here, it's half a meter of almost 177 grams, half a meter of almost 200 grams. But what's special about the Denise zone is that we see mineralization within the host rock itself. And that's why we're able to hang together a lot of these larger intervals, like 65 meters of almost 2 grams and 189 of a bit over a gram. So this will most likely be an open pit target located right next to the underground portion of the high grade zone. So just to give an idea of the metallurgy that we have at Penol, this was the metallurgy work that was done on the high grade zone, and the results that came back were exceptional, essentially. So by far and away, the cheapest way to recover gold is via a gravity circuit. And out of the 3 composites we sent off to SGS laboratories in Quebec City, over 75% of the gold was recovered via the gravity circuit. And that was actually the lowest of the 3 composites. The other 2 came back at 83 and 90. So extremely high recovery just via the gravity circuit. Once we add the cyanidation into the flow as well, all the recoveries were well above 99%. And this is actually skipping out the flotation process altogether. So it just speaks volumes to the nature of the gold mineralization that we find within the high grade zone. You can see an example of the gold grains in the right-hand side in the pictures here. Very large gold grains, free gold. It's not trapped within sulfides, even though we do find some sulfides within these quartz veins, such as pyrite and sphalerite. They are association minerals, so the gold is not trapped within the sulfides, and it's free sitting within these quartz veins. Recently, we completed metallurgical work across the balance of our zones also, so Grey Cat, Gratien, Denise, and Teams. And all of those results came back above 95% also. So extremely good metallurgy across the balance of our zones at Penol. So this is the Gratien zone, which is our zone to most of the west, where recently we released some drill results earlier this year we were drilling in the western expansion of the Gratien zone at depth in a zone we hadn't drilled before, and found some very nice high-grade intercepts, one of which was 3.5 meters off 76 grams, which I believe is on the next slide. It is. So this is some of the results we've put out from the Gratien zone this year, which comes in multiple stacked lenses. And the exciting thing about the Gratien zone is that we are starting to find mineralization within the andesite of the Normantal South block, which is, as I mentioned, is a typical place you would start looking for orogenic gold deposits. So this Gratien zone is going to continue to grow in size and stature very rapidly, and it opens up that entire Normantal South block for further exploration. This is the Grey Cat zone that we have just to the northwest of Gratien. As you can see here, the amount of drilling that we've done in the Grey Cat zone in comparison to the high grade zone in Denise is little to none at all. So this is one of our satellite deposits at this point, but does have some good high grade gold mineralization in it. As you can see, open in all directions, and a lot more work required here to continue to grow this satellite deposit into a much larger system. So this is our consolidated team zone, which Dan referred to in his introduction. Recently, we combined what we previously called, if you look at this image here, the 210 zone on the northeastern side and the E3 zone on the southeastern side, together with the team zone to form one larger mineralized corridor that we can see here. The team zone's only located roughly 500 meters to the east of the high grade zone. So all of these ore bodies are located extremely closely together. From the team zone all the way to the east of the Gratien zone, all the way in the west, we're talking about a strike length of about 4 to 5 kilometers. So as Dan mentioned, we saw a lot of geological similarities, as well as the style of mineralization and the orientation of the veins, that we decided to combine these zones into one larger zone and model them up together. So we do have numerous other gold discoveries across the balance of the Peron project that are still in their earlier stages, but do hold a huge potential. So there is, for example, the Alazi zone, E2, Donna, that still don't have enough drilling to be able to properly quantify them yet, but do have some exceptional hits in them. For example, 5 meters of almost 32 grams in the Alazi zone is extremely high grade material, and just still at very early stages with these new discoveries, and will require more drilling to quantify their resources. The main story for Amex exploration is gold, of course, but we have made a VMS, a copper-rich VMS discovery that was made within at the end of 2022. So this what we call the QF zone is found in the Normatal volcanic complex, just located just outside the Beaupré block. So this blue geological package that you can see down here is actually named the Normatal mine sequence, which, if you follow that 4 kilometers to the southeast, you will find the historically producing Normatal VMS mine. So it's in the exact same package of rocks. The only difference we're seeing between our body so far and the Normatal mine is that our system seems to be more copper rich than zinc rich, which is obviously great at this point in time, considering copper prices in today's market. So the focus for Amex is definitely the gold, but this QF zone definitely adds to the economics of the project with this copper rich VMS system, which is still at its very early days and requires a lot more drilling to properly quantify it. And this will not be in our resource that we will be putting out this year. We recently drilled a metallurgy hole into this, which we released the assays for about a month ago. And we're doing the metallurgy work for the QF zone currently. So just to talk a little bit about the blue sky potential that exists across the balance of the property. In 2022 and 23, we did a property-wide soil and bark sampling program, which gave us numerous gold and VMS anomalies to go and follow up on in areas that there are no known mineralized bodies yet. So a lot of these targets remain to be followed up on in our regional program. So the potential for additional discoveries is looking really great. This slide here just briefly points to the fact that the Quebec forest fires that were in the Abitibi in summer of 2023, which I'm sure many people saw across the news. The silver lining for us in this was, as well as none of our equipment being damaged or the town of Normatal also escaped unscathed, was that because of the rapid moving nature of the fire, didn't completely burn down all the trees, and the Quebec government sent in all the forestry guys to recover the burnt wood, because the value still remained in the wood. It only burnt the outside bark. So because of that work by the forestry guys, they came in and put almost 35 kilometers worth of new roads across our project at no cost to Amex, to recover those burnt wood and help in the reforestation process. So previously our road network only went up to the Gratien zone. Now we're able to drive around the entirety of the property with these new forestry roads, and that saves a lot on our exploration cost. Regional targets that previously would have required a helicopter to float the drill rig to, now we can drive the drill rig right up to them, so it halves our exploration costs for those regional holes essentially. So it was a great piece of work from the Quebec government, and which was great for us. Very important point about the Perron project is infrastructure. So this is the town of Normantal where we operate out of. If I go to the next slide here, we'll be able to. So this is our core shed located right in town in Normantal. Our core storage facility just out the back. All of our geologists, drillers, technicians, everyone lives in town. So we've got access to a very experienced workforce. This is the road that leads, that if I spin back in this direction, there's the town of Normantal again. The road to site leaves directly from town and goes straight to where all of our drill rigs are located. As you can see here, there's a high voltage power line that runs over the road. And this is actually the power line that provides electricity to the Casa Berardi mine up the road. So the closest point off this power line to our high grade zone, as an example, is only 4 kilometers. So our capex here at the Perron project is going to be significantly lower than other projects, perhaps a gold project in the northern parts of Quebec that you need hundreds of kilometers of new power line. We're going to have extremely low capex in comparison to a lot of other projects in the area. This just shows the transformer station that is located next to the town that supplies, as I mentioned, power up to Casa Berardi. All green power here in Quebec. We've got a lot of hydroelectricity, which comes from a lot of the dams up north. So great from an environmental point of view also. This is just a quick overview of the town of Normantal. So you can see this is the reclaimed tailings dam from the historically producing Normantal mine. So this is a mining town. The town council is extremely supportive of us and the project. A lot of the people that live here in Normantal work up the road at the Casa Berardi mine for Hecla. So they want to see the Perron project become a mine. They'd much rather wake up out of bed and roll into a mine site rather than having to drive an hour up the road. So we have great support from the local community. This is also the town of La Sarre, which is about a 20-minute drive to the south. A much bigger center. We're talking about 10 to 12,000 people in this town. You've got access to all your hardware, all our drill requirements. A lot of our drillers live in this town as well. One of the really cool things about our project, you get cell service from all of the drill rigs anywhere on site. We have cell service. You can even order McDonald's or Boston Pizza or whatever you like, which is in the town of La Sarre. You can order it right to the drill rigs if you'd like. So not many projects around the world have that available to them. So it's the infrastructure is certainly very impressive. And this is just some of our goals for the rest of 2024. The highlights which being that we will be releasing our first resource in a couple of months here. So please look out for that. That is going to be a major catalyst for Amex this year. And then to be shortly followed after that by a PEA, preliminary economic study, in sometime in Q3. So we want to get that economic study out as soon as possible after the resource estimate, just to show the economics behind the Perron project, because we think they're going to be extremely attractive. So if there are any questions, please fire away. And thanks again, Dan, for having us on.
Okay, good job. Let me ask some dumb questions by somebody that doesn't think about mining. But okay, what is your ownership in this area? How do you control that area?
So the ownership is so it's 45. It's approximately 45 square kilometers. So
Okay.
we have mining rights. We have the rights, the subsurface and the subsurface rights. To get the surface rights, so we are on Crown land, Once you get a feasibility study, you can get a lease on the property, and it goes in 20. There are 20-year leases that can be renewed over and over. So it's that's the
Okay.
ownership. So, and there is a mining law in Quebec. So it's really quite it's a stable jurisdiction. It's a very good jurisdiction. So ownership, that's actually a great question, because ownership of the property is very, very important. So that's why you want to be in a good jurisdiction.
Hmm. So and then once they start a mine, and once they're mining there, it just like an oil and gas, then the production holds it.
That's correct. That's
You can
correct.
just keep, it just keeps extending. Okay. So you can't lose your ownership is what I got.
Oh, no, you won't lose your ownership. I mean, the lease yearly payments are very light. So
Mhm.
it's not a lot. I mean, the government wants you to be mining, because that's where they'll earn their big money, is through the royalties. So that's where
Okay.
they want their
What,
yeah.
okay. So do you now, one of the questions is, what are the capital needs for the next few years? So to get through all these bullet points, do you have
Yep.
that funding already in place?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're budgeted until the end of 2025. We raised this $26.65 million. It was in February. We still
Okay.
have a little over $20 million. So the goal, so when we're talking about milestones and goals, so our milestones is to release our first resource estimate, put out an economic study, and we've got 5 drill rigs on site right now, and they'll continue to be drilling the property this year and until the end of next year. I mean, that's up to where we're budgeted, but I could see this property continuing. You know, like Aaron was saying earlier, there's well over 20 kilometers of prolific faults on the property, which have been gold bearing. We've
Mhm.
barely touched 4 to 5 kilometers of it right now. So there is a lot of drilling. I do expect a lot more zones, gold zones, to be discovered as we continue on. And I could tell you this much, that there hasn't been one hole that hasn't had at least background gold. It may not have been economic gold, but there's gold in every single one of our
Wow.
drillings.
So like looking at that map, so the tan area in the middle, would that be considered like that you're calling the team zone now? So
Yeah.
that would turn into one big mine. Is that like an open pit mine, or how do you mine this?
Yeah, there'll be a so one of if I can go to Aaron, you have control of it. Can you go on the longitudinal section?
Yep, absolutely.
The long so Aaron, maybe you can describe like how the mining would look like. And again, this is early days. Neither Aaron nor myself are mining engineers. These is just conceptual until we put it out.
Mhm.
We still don't know exactly. So what it would be when you see this long thing that goes all the way down.
Yeah.
So we would be able to put in, you bring in a portal, and you do you put a ramp. You don't need to do a shaft. The shaft it'll come in like 5 to 10 times more expensive. You don't need to have a shaft. You bring in a ramp, and you just circle down, and you end up mining. You mine all that, and at the same time, because the mineralization is close by, there's still a lot of drilling that has to be, where you don't see much, much pink, and it's just a lack of drilling. And then what we call drift. You drift to each side. So it'll be extremely economic. That's how you want deposits. So you want so that'll be the underground. You want this deposit lies around 88, 89 degrees, and that's the perfect. Like, you actually want 90 degrees. If you have a deposit at 45 degrees, your operating costs are going to be way more expensive. And when you look at all that empty space going right across, from the left to the right, until you hit this, what we call the high grade zone, and past that, there's still a lot of drilling that needs to happen. And this is only on about 4.5 to 5 kilometers of the 20 plus kilometers that are on the zone.
So they like build this ramp, kind of a tunnel
Yeah,
going on an angle, and then they're
that's
just
right.
mining as they go, right? They're just,
That's right.
and
That's
then
right.
and then so what comes out of it? And this gold is in quartz.
Yes.
Well, the gold is in the quartz, but because it's free gold, you actually get most of it that comes out. You actually get most of it that will come out just with gravity, and then you don't for the high grade zone, you actually skip the flotation, and then you get to cyanide. You can get to cyanide extraction on the at the end of it, and you're actually recovering more than you're actually extracting in the 99%. Now we've done also metallurgy on the balance of the property on the other zones, and there we got a little over 95%. These are exceptional. These are exceptional numbers, and that's because they're not. The gold is not trapped inside the sulfides. Like a sulfide would be sphalerite. That's a zinc based, or so it's not trapped within there. So the and metallurgy is extremely important, because it'll, if when you have good metallurgy, it lowers your operating costs. Like
Right.
we
And
actually
then,
expect this
and
to be
obviously at today's gold price, if you're talking $2,400 an ounce,
oh, absolutely,
it's a lot of
absolutely.
money.
Oh, it is. It is. When I got involved, in this project, gold was trading in the 1100 range. That was in late 2016. Gold now, approaching the 2400. If you look at historically, gold actually performs the best in an environment where interest rates are coming down, and not just we're not talking about just geopolitical issues. So now you have two things that are going for gold. You've got the geopolitical issues, and I do believe that interest rates will come down. And what's going to be great too, when I look at oil, also like oil, like we were discussing earlier, it will follow. It will follow.
Yeah, it
It will
follows
follow
gold. Yeah, it
yeah,
does
it follows the
eventually.
price of gold. Eventually, it will follow gold. Yes, I do believe gold will end up in the $100 plus within probably a year or so. I mean, anyways, you've got better numbers. I'm not going to act like I have a crystal ball for oil.
And just to reiterate, Dan, we'll have a combination of underground and open pits at the Prom project here. So, like Victor was saying, definitely the high grade zone is going to be more of an underground style of mine. But for example, the Denise zone team there'll be open pits there, as well as Gratien and Grey Cat. There'll be open pits that will transform into underground operations as well. So a combination of underground and open pit mining, which can work really nicely together at the same time. If you have two operations, well, the same operation but two different styles of mining coinciding with one another, you can increase your tonnage per day. So
do you see Amex doing this by themselves, or a much larger mining company is going to come in and buy the project or something? And then what does Amex get? Do you get a carried interest or royalty or something off of this?
Yeah, so I do believe this project will, again, this is speculation on my end of it. Look, we are hiring, we did hire mining engineers to work with us. Like if we want to turn this thing into a mine, we'll have to bring in the expertise, which is something that we're trying to that we will do. I think this is going to be a very high priced mine that will be, you know, I think it will be a good candidate for one of the producers, whether it be a mid tier or or a major. So do I believe we'll end up mining this ourselves? I personally don't think so. We can, and we are ready if we have to. We're going to keep moving forward. Like I see some of the questions. What is the capital required to commence production and ramp up to full production? One of the first things that we'll probably do is, which can get that done within a year or so, is do a bulk sample. A bulk sample will probably take a year or so to get in there. So we would be allowed, under the bulk sample rules in Quebec, we'd be able to do about 15,000 tons of initial production. Permitting in Quebec will take about 3 years or so. Capital requirements, putting in a ramp, and I'm talking about a ramp along with putting in a ramp, and along with the open pits. Look, again, the waiver here, I'm completely I'm not a mining engineer, so
You're speculating. Yeah, I get it.
Exactly. So capital cost there we'll probably be in the 200 to 250 million range. But again, these numbers, I need an economic study to actually confirm these types of numbers. I know there was another question about what is the average cost estimates per ounce of gold production? That would be way too early, and I'd really be speculating. I'm uncomfortable to speculate with numbers like that. But just to give an example, like some of these projects that are in production right now, there's many of them. It's 1 gram, 1.5 grams, like the Greenstone mine that's just going in production right now. You're looking around a gram and a half. Some of the underground mines are a little bit higher production now. When you look at this picture here, and every pink blob, every pink circle that you see there is at least 10 grams or more. I do believe that the average grade here will come in at least 10 grams. It'll probably be 10 to 15 grams. So when you think of production costs, right? So when I take 1 ton of material, and I'm going to extract 1 gram per ton of gold, which there's operations are happening right now, and they're very profitable. Now, think of, I'm lifting this 1 gram, this 1 ton, and there's going to be 10 to 15 grams.
I know.
So I believe it's going to be and if I would average it property wide, if I look at the, one thing I could, let's say here rely on is I look at the analysts, the 5 analysts that are covering us, and property wide, including some of the low grade material, you're probably looking at anywhere 3 to 4 grams across the property. So it is considered a high grade mine. So it's going to be low cost. The other thing that adds a lot is when you need infrastructure, when you have to start building out infrastructure.
Yes.
We have a transformation. We have a transformation. An electrical transformer right there. It's within 2-3 kilometers, 4 kilometers from the actual project where we want to end up doing the mine. Bringing it, and it's not just, we didn't just show you some fancy high tension 750 kV line, because even when you show something like that, you still got to take it down to normal electricity. So it's all there. That supplies the city of Normantal, and it supplies the Casa Berardi mine. There's a lot of excess electricity there. So that's one item, and it's hydroelectricity. You have a labor force there. There's a town of Lasar with 12,000 residents. There's Rouyn-Noranda with 40,000 residents. So you don't have to have these fly in, fly out. People will just drive to the project, on top of having already a workforce inside the town of Normantal, where we're located. There's water. There's housing. Like just an example is this is at the exploration stage, right? So if this project would be remote, it would be costing us about $250 per person per day just to sleep people there. We rent houses. Well, we've bought the houses now, but we used to rent these houses where you have 4 people in there. We used to pay $2,000 a month for them, Canadian dollars. Like whereas it would cost me basically $800 a day to house 4 people. So this is where I expect this project to be one of those highly sought after, high grade, low cost mines. And I think that's one of the reasons that Eldorado Gold put in the money. They took a 9.9% stake, and I think the reason that they did it was specifically for that. They're running a high grade mine about 2.5 hours away from us. It's called the Lamaque mine, and same type like it is with this high grade gold. So they're seeing the profitability, and as they're mining now, they keep finding new zones. So
yeah, I mean, that's what I think is exciting about this, because it seems like you said, everywhere you've drilled, you've seen traces of gold. Right.
Oh, absolutely.
The area, it's a big area. It could just keep getting expanded. So this is a very long-term project for one of those companies. And like you said, with the infrastructure, the same thing in oil and gas. I mean, when I was at Hess, they went out there and drilled some wells down in Australia, actually Western Australia, and they were like 200 miles away from any infrastructure.
Yeah.
Even though they had a good well, it was like, well, how the hell are you going to develop this thing? You're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. And you know what, to show you the blue sky, I want to show you the blue sky for a second. I know I'm probably repeating, maybe Aaron, I'm sure he showed that. Aaron, can you go on the geology map? So where you usually, So Ryan, maybe you can, if you want to trace it, okay? So where there's this color, where there's this cream color where we have all the zones there. So that's what it's a sodic rhyolite. So that is not where you would typically look for gold. There's, I think, 10 or 15% of the deposits in the world are inside a rhyolite. Where you would actually look for gold, we haven't put in one drill hole looking for
Oh,
gold.
okay.
In this area here, these are the volcanics. This is where you would normally put in. There's not one hole that has gone. There will be soon. There were some holes there. They were looking for base metals at some point, but this is where you would typically look for gold. So it's not just the ounces that we're going to be putting out in a month or so. It's really the blue sky potential that this project
And
that
and the
this project
acreage you
has.
control, is that what's outlined in that little red line?
Yep, that's right.
Okay, so that's what you own. Okay, so that's what you
And at
control
some
right now.
point, we definitely want to at some point, we definitely want to acquire more land to the west of us and to the east of us. We're not going to do it right now. We're going to put out we're going to put out our resource first, economic study, and then we're going to get on an acquisition. Even though 45 square kilometers is, it's quite a big, it's quite a big project, but we believe, like, we've been doing a lot of work on the property. Like, we have our geophysics. We've been doing our artificial intelligence. We've been doing machine learning, and basically what that's telling us is that there's going to be, this is not the only place where you're going to have mineralization. So eventually we'll quietly acquire more of a land package and really increase the amount of acreage that we're going to have in the area.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks good. Let me see a couple of questions. I think you answered it. You still got a lot more drilling to do this year and next.
Yep.
You
It's
get that all.
and all the drilling is budgeted all the way till the end of 2025. That's
Okay,
important.
yeah, that's all financed. We had
Probably drilling roughly 80,000 meters this year.
Okay, wow.
So we'll eventually be over the 500,000 meters drilled mark at some point this year.
Yeah, and so what that does is when let's see how that you put this out for sale or whatever, or proposals, and then these other mining companies come in and look at it, and then they make offers, right? Is that
That's
what it
correct.
kind of?
Yeah, they'll be they need all these producers. What they do is they need to slot in different like, for example, they're already producing, so they're losing ounces, so they need to go acquire ounces that are going to be in production in a year. They need to go a development story, and they need an early stage story. So they need to continue slotting in as they keep producing, because once they produce, it's
Yeah,
they lose
then
the
they're out
ounces.
of business. They got to have. I call that running room. That's my new
Yes.
term. And everybody's in our business. Oh, now it's all free cash flow. Who's generating free cash flow? Well, I
Yes.
said any company can generate free cash flow if all they do is deplete their current assets.
Yeah.
They don't drill any more new wells. They don't go do any more exploration work or spend any money on exploration. Well, then what happens is they're out of business. It's just like going out of business sale or something. Yeah, that generates a whole bunch of free cash flow. But these
Yeah.
mining companies, especially, they all think long term, and they have to have decades of inventory, or they're not a real mining company, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, any other points you want to make?
On my end, I mean, this is really a high grade. This is really a high grade, good jurisdiction. We're not encroached by any major waterways. We're not under a lake. There'll be no, as long as we stay under 5,000 tons per day, there'll be no federal permitting. It's going to be all provincial permitting. So yeah, I think this is one of these really sought after projects that are going to be high grade, low cost, and I think that's what the market is looking for right now. I think the prospects for gold are really good. I could see gold even breaking into
I like that.
new highs and going to new territory, probably even the $2,500 and $3,000. I've seen Pierre Lassonde and some other gold experts talking about numbers like this, and even beyond these kind
Oh
of
yeah,
numbers.
I've seen forecasts, and they're all based on kind of inflation.
That's
But
correct.
I've seen forecasts of like $10,000 an
Yeah.
ounce.
Yes,
I
I
mean,
have also.
hey, well, I tell you, when I was in the oil business, I'm going to be making this presentation up there on Sunday, and I'm going to show them I got into the oil business 20 years ago, and I never dreamed we'd see $50 oil.
I know.
We were just saying, can we get above 20 and stay there? You know, that'd be good enough.
I remember. I remember those days in the early 2000 where oil was 10 $12 or that could have been in the late in the 90s, like,
Oh
and
yeah,
it's
in the 90s, the 90s it got pretty
90s.
bad. In fact, in the 90s, we were actually selling some of our North Dakota oil for around $3 a barrel for a while.
That's great.
So it's you know, for old timers like me, these when people say, "Oh my God, oil's down to $77," and you go, "Man, if you can't make money at $77, you're in the wrong business." So, but
Exactly.
the cheap stuff's all been harvested, so we need higher prices.
That's
Anyway,
right.
guys, hey, and I will invite you anytime, you know, when you reach certain milestones or something,
Yep.
you want to come down and make presentations down here in Houston. We're ramping up our Houston luncheon program again, and it's really starting to pick up. So a lot more interest in it, and there's just more. I'm seeing more and more interest this year in hard assets. So yeah, okay, you know, it's good to, you know, invest in, you know, EVs or something AI stuff, but Bitcoin. But I don't understand. People can understand that gold has value and silver has value and copper has value and so does
Right.
oil, and it's going to have value for a long time. This world runs on this stuff, and we need raw materials, especially. I'm excited about that. How big could that copper thing be? That copper discovery, is that a pretty
Yeah.
significant find there?
Yeah, it is. It is. I didn't want to confuse the story. Like, so I didn't
Okay.
want to be one of these companies. You know, we
Oh, we got
really
this. We got you got a bazillion things going. Yeah.
yeah, we really wanted to continue on with the gold and not say, you know, now that copper is great. Oh, look, we just found copper. No, we did find copper. I'm gonna dedicate, like, I have an important milestone to deliver, and that's gonna be the resource calculation, and then we'll put out a PA, and that's when I'd like to come down. Hopefully, say it
Okay.
would be sometime in July, so then we could talk about that resource. But I think later in 2024 we'll start concentrating also. Can it be big? So just beside us, 4 kilometers away, they had a 10 million ton deposit, you know, with more than 2% copper. But the important thing, again, when we talk about distance, is there's a refinery um, an hour and a half away from us that converts the copper ore to copper. It's
Okay.
the horn well, smelter. We'll call it a smelter. There's a smelter only an hour and a half away. Just imagine making the same kind of find and you're somewhere, you know, 2, 3, 400 kilometers away with no infrastructure. Well, you need to find 20, 30, 40, 50 million tons. Here I find 5 million tons, 10 million tons. It'll be profitable already. I can already
hmm
start to
hmm
ship it down. So
Hey, why don't you? Oh, we were talking before, you know, we started this that Victor is in London right now. So, why don't you tell us what you're doing over there and what's the response from the people you're talking to?
yeah, so we're in London. There's a show. It's like a it's an investor show. It's like a speed dating. So every half hour we make you know we're visiting. It's different investors that we speak to, and yeah, we have like our schedule is full. Like we've got 12 meetings. Like every half hour we have a scheduled meeting over 2 days. Everybody's looking for one of these stories right now with, you know, a high grade, low
hmm
cost potential story. Yeah, there's different. It's all resource companies here. It's yeah, it's quite. We got quite a good reception this year.
Yeah, well, we've gotten a lot of new members in London, the UK. In fact, one that today just renewed his membership this morning. So
Amazing.
we're picking up a lot of members over there, and they're very interested in this kind of stuff. So
Well,
anyway,
absolutely.
well,
Great.
guys, yeah, thanks a lot, and good presentation, Aaron. And we
Thank you,
will
Dan.
put Amex on our watch list here, and so we'll be getting in touch with you, and maybe see you guys down in Houston later this summer.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We'll be there. Thanks a lot, Dan,
Okay,
for